Welcome to LC Screen Talk. My name is Larry, and today we're discussing diversity in film for 2016. So this is an annual series in which we go over what diversity looked like in film for the year. So we're going to try to have a little bit more in depth of a discussion. We're going to look at numbers, we're going to look at representation, all of that fun jazz. And we're going to start with Hollywood's bottom line, and that's the box office. So all of these numbers are based on the domestic box office because this is really dealing with race relations here in the US, and the global culture dealing with race is a whole different story. So when we look at the top 10 highest grossing films for 2016, only 2 of those have a person of color in the leading role. And honestly, it's kind of a soft 2. So the one film that undeniably has a person of color in the lead role is The Jungle Book. And it's someone of Indian descent in that leading role, so that's super exciting. The other one I'm counting for this list, but is a little bit more iffy, goes to The Suicide Squad. I would argue that Deadshot and Will Smith are the lead, but I think the movie itself heavily favored Margot Robbie and Harley Quinn to advertise the film. So it's kind of like, but we'll give that number in. Just because I do think Will Smith technically is the lead. When we look at the top 20 in the box office, that number doubles and gives us 4. In the entire top 50, we only have 7 films with people of color in the lead. And when we look at the entire top 100 highest grossing films of 2016, 12 of those have somebody of a minority descent in the lead. So breaking this down a little bit further, 10 of those lead roles were for African American actors and actresses. 1 is an Indian actor, as I mentioned, and we have 1 Pacific Island girl in Moana as the other. The 2 notable absences there, no one of any sort of Hispanic descent was in the lead role of their film, and no one of Eastern Asian descent was the lead in a film there either. Of course, nobody of a Middle Eastern descent is there because, So 3 of those 12 had Kevin Hart in the lead or co-lead role, and Kevin Hart also had a 4th movie in the top 100 as well. So it's a little bit disappointing to see one person take up such a large percentage of that. An entire 4th of the diversity in leads was taken up by Kevin Hart. 4 of the films were targeted pretty specifically toward black audiences and had almost exclusively black casts or largely black casts. And then one of the other ones was the Kevin Hart stand-up special, so there was almost nobody else in the film. And overall, these numbers are down, actually, from 2015. We saw 16 movies in the top 100 feature someone of color in the lead. So going down to 12 isn't a positive sign by any means. This number may fluctuate as the final numbers start rolling in. I think Fences has a good shot of breaking into the top 100. Moonlight may still have an outside chance to get in there. We'll see. But, still, we don't have a shot at even getting to that 16 and matching 2015. Something that is a little bit more encouraging is that when we go behind the camera, those numbers actually almost match the front of the camera talent numbers. We had 11 directors of color break into the top 100 highest grossing films. 6 of those directors were black, 3 of those directors were Asian, and then 2 of those directors were Hispanic. So we see the Asian and Hispanic groups break in here while the other groups all fall away. And this same sentiment that we're seeing with the actors and the directors is definitely reflected when we get to award season, because yay, we're not going to have Oscar So White this year, most likely. And we have a ton of movies with diverse casts that are really in the mix. We have Fences, we have Hidden Figures, we have Moonlight, all in the mix here trying to get those award spots. But again, it's only the black talent that is really getting in there. So it's great to finally add some color into the awards discussion this year after 2 years of having none of it. But unfortunately, Hispanic, Asian, Middle Eastern, Indian, wherever else you want to look on the color spectrum, none of those groups are breaking in. None of those groups, as we saw, are really getting lead roles in movies. None of those groups are really having an impact behind the camera this year. And it shows because the roles aren't there, thus the awards opportunities aren't there right now either. But it's not all so bleak. It's not all dwindling numbers. It's not all just black and white, although a lot of times it does seem like that's the only place the discussion knows how to go. One positive step this year took was creating big, diverse casts in big budget movies. I think maybe finally Fast and Furious' example has kind of opened the door for other franchises to say, hey, we can add some color into our cast and it won't hurt our box office. So Rogue One is shooting its way up the box office charts, and it has a very diverse cast. So of course we have like Felicity Jones in the lead, but we have Diego Luna, we have Forrest Whitaker, we have Riz Ahmed, we have Donnie Yen. It just is a very, very well-rounded, diverse group of people. And I really appreciated Rogue One for really going out there and diversifying this cast. And then I mentioned Suicide Squad, which had a great, wonderfully diverse cast. We already talked about Will Smith, we had Margot Robbie, we had Viola Davis, character of El Diablo and Killer Croc were both of color, as was Katana. So again, just a nice, well-rounded, very colorful cast for a very colorful cast of characters. Then you look over at the Magnificent Seven, and out of that seven, we had a lot of different groups represented, including a Native American actor. So that was wonderful to see. And then we shoot on over to Independence Day Resurgence. A nice set of diversity there. Not quite as expansive in racial diversity, but again, we had black, we had white, we had Asian, all represented as the main pilots and actual people who could do their job. The unfortunate part there, again, is while we are seeing huge progression in these large ensemble, diverse casts, in most of the cases, the diverse cast members are kind of pushed to the back. An area that we also saw a little bit of improvement on, but not enough, was whitewashing in 2016. Of course, we kicked off the year with Gods of Egypt just completely whitewashing Egypt, and then apologizing for it. It was a bad movie, and it got panned by critics, by audiences. Everybody just kind of wishes they didn't have that on their resume, I think. But then we got to Doctor Strange, and Marvel's first dabble in whitewashing backlash. But in that case, it didn't hurt the box office at all, having Tilda Swinton whitewash into the role of the Ancient One, and having a oddly inappropriate cast for the region they were in as our main group of heroes and protagonists here. But I mean, it is Marvel. They're a behemoth within the business, so it's going to take more than one instance of whitewashing to really take them down. And we already see with Black Panther and those casting decisions that they are trying to right that ship at least a little bit. But looking forward, we still have about 2 other instances in 2017 already solidified, starting with Ghost in the Shell and Scarlett Johansson being cast in the lead there. And then we look over to that film, The Great Wall, starring Matt Damon. It's not necessarily whitewashing, it's just that same old white savior complex. Both of these are happening in Asia, and both are taking from Asian properties. So honestly, I think that this is just more representative of China and the Asian box office growing in such large numbers that Hollywood needs to make Asian-themed films, but they still want to have white people in the center of them. So I think that's the next big horizon and hurdle we're going to have to work our way through. But I guess it's a process. I have a whole video titled The Casey Affleck Situation that delves way deeper into the whole Casey Affleck, Nate Parker double standard that took place this year regarding sexual assault cases, and how I think race completely plays a role there. And I also have another discussion about race and what it looked like this year that's a little further in depth just on what is going on behind the scenes and not necessarily box office. So check that out as well. But honestly, when it came to racial diversity in film this year, I I think we took a step backward. We're seeing whole groups of people being left behind. We're seeing the whole Hispanic population, who makes up a very good-sized chunk of movie-going dollars, just completely not represented. And again, for the continent of Asia to be such a big player in the worldwide box office, they're getting no love. So it's really discouraging to me. And as I said, just in general, we're down a little bit in people of color being in those leading roles. And if it weren't for Kevin Hart, I mean, we wouldn't even have 10 movies that had somebody of color in a lead role, which is just... And it's just kind of a sad show when you look at the box office numbers, that the more that Hollywood says they're making progress and pushing forward, the more things either stay the same or actually regress. And even when you look at the films that underperformed and, were big budget but didn't actually make it in there, they're not minority-led films, so you can't say, oh, well, people just didn't go to see those movies. No. They didn't exist. The ones that existed, the ones that were made, are here. But this is unfortunately just kind of the numbers that Hollywood created this year. So we'll see in 2017. All of the big blockbusters and heavy hitters unfortunately look like it's going to provide more of the same in terms of racial diversity right now. But we'll see what pops up. We'll see what kind of developments take place. Maybe the end of the year list will look a little bit more promising, but I have to say 2016 was a down year, I think, in general, and certainly served as a down year in the progress for racial diversity in the top tiers of Hollywood stardom. So that is my brief kind of box office breakdown discussion of what diversity looked like when it came to film in 2016. What did you think of these numbers? Did any of them shock you? Do any of them encourage or discourage you? I'd love to hear your thoughts, your opinions. This is a discussion that I really think we need to continue to push and continue to have. So leave those comments either down below or hit me up on Twitter. I love you all so much for your support. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!